Evan Miller hated driving the night shift. The roads around Pine Hollow always felt too empty, too quiet, as if the darkness swallowed sound. His EMS shift had ended late again after a call that shook him more than usual. A young boy found wandering alone near the edge of Black Ridge Forest, unable to speak, hands shaking violently. It bothered him. Kids didn't go anywhere near that forest. As Evan drove home in his old Ford truck, the radio flickered in and out. Static. Then, silence. The sky was moonless, the air freezing the windshield from the outside. He tapped the radio, hoping for anything to break the stillness. Instead, he heard a whisper. Barely there, almost like someone sitting in the back seat. Finally, Evan braked hard, heart as he approached the curve near the old trailhead. He saw someone standing in the road. A man. Evan hit the brakes, tires skidding on frost. The figure didn't move. He stepped out, flashlight in hand. "Sir, you all right?" The beam hit the man's face. Pale, wet clothes, eyes full of something Evan couldn't name. The man tilted his head. His voice was soft, broken. Why did you leave me?" Evan's breath stopped. "What?" he whispered. I don't even know you." The man stepped closer. His clothes were old-fashioned, torn, covered in dirt. He smelled like damp soil and rotting leaves. "You left me," the man repeated. "You promised you wouldn't, but you did." Evan stumbled back. "Sir, listen, you need help." The man's face twisted into something impossible. His mouth stretched too wide. His eyes darkened until there was no white left. "You left me there, alone." The wind roared. The trees bent inward, as if listening. And just as Evan looked around wildly, breath visible in the air. A whisper brushed against his ear again. "You'll come back, Evan." He froze. It knew his name. The next morning, Evan sat in Sheriff Briggs' office, hands shaking around a steaming cup of weak coffee. Sheriff Briggs didn't look convinced. "You saw a man disappear into the air?" "Yes," Evan insisted. "He knew my name." Briggs leaned back. "Look, Evan, you're a solid guy, but you've been working nights for how long now? People get tired. They see things. This wasn't fatigue." The sheriff tapped his desk. "Black Ridge Forest isn't a place for imagination. That area has been closed since the 80s. Too many folks got lost out there. You stay away from that place. Understood?" Evan didn't answer. He couldn't. Because even now, he felt something watching him through the sheriff's window. Claire Bennett, the only journalist in Pine Hollow who cared about more than local fairs and weather reports, met Evan at the diner that afternoon. She listened carefully as he told her everything. "That description," Claire whispered, "matches someone." "Matches who?" "A man named Jack Hanlon. Went missing in 1986. Last seen near Black Ridge Forest." Evan's stomach dropped. She slid an old photo across the table. A blurry shot of a man hiking. Same torn jacket, same pale face. Evan's blood ran cold. That's him. Claire leaned in. Evan, this forest is not normal. People hear voices. People see things. And those who've gone missing, they never come back. Evan swallowed. He wasn't human. Then what was he? The diner lights flickered. A shadow moved across the window. Neither of them turned. Both of them knew. It had followed him. That night, Evan couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard it. The whisper. You'll come back. Around midnight, something hit the front door. Hard. 3 slow knocks. Evan crept forward, heart pounding. Another knock. But this time, it came from the back door. Then the windows. Soft taps, circling the house. Tap, tap, tap. He grabbed his flashlight and opened the door. Nobody there, just cold air. And on his lawn, footprints. But they weren't human. They were longer, narrower, and like a creature that didn't walk upright. The trail led into the woods behind his house. And at the tree line, he saw him again. Jack. Only now his body was twisted. Limbs too long. Head tilted unnaturally. He lifted one hand and pointed into the forest. Evan heard the whisper again. You left me. Now come back. Evan followed the twisted, unnatural figure of Jack toward the tree line. But just before he reached the woods, a voice shouted behind him. Evan! Don't! He spun around. Claire was running down the driveway, breathless, hair wet with frost. She grabbed his arm. If you go in there alone, you might not come back. He pointed at the shadow near the trees. He wants me to follow. I think he needs something. Claire shook her head. No, that's not Jack anymore. They both looked back. The twisted figure was gone. Only the cold, mist-filled tree line remained. Claire handed him a folded newspaper article. Read this. In faded print, 1986, 3 hikers missing near Black Ridge Forest. Local man Jack Hanlon was last seen leading the group. Evan frowned. Jack wasn't alone? No, Claire whispered. And the other 2 were never found. Evan felt a chill. You think he wants me to find them? I think he wants you for something else, Claire said softly. People who go missing in this forest, they don't stay dead. They change. They both stared into the silent woods. And then, faintly, a child's voice echoed from deep inside. Help me. Claire grabbed Evan's sleeve tight. That voice has been used before. It's not real. But Evan was already stepping forward. The next morning, Evan and Claire met at the Pine Hollow Historical Society, a small wooden building run by Margaret Finch, a gray-haired woman with a sharp gaze and a habit of appearing where she wasn't expected. Margaret locked the door behind them. You 2 should not be stirring this up, she said, without turning around. The forest listens. Claire ignored her and went to the back cabinet, pulling out a dusty metal box. It was labeled Black Ridge Archive. Restricted. Inside were sketches of the forest from the 1950s. All hand-drawn, all incredibly detailed. Yet one thing appeared on every map. A circular clearing in the very center. No trails leading in. No trails leading out. Just one word written repeatedly. The still place. Evan pointed at it. What is that? Margaret's voice trembled. A place that predates the town. Older than the logging camps. Older than any settlement. Claire added. Local legends say anyone who steps into the still place sees what they fear most and hears what they love most. Margaret nodded gravely. And some say the forest chooses one person every generation to replace the last one it took. Evan stared at the map. One person, every generation. Jack, he whispered. Margaret didn't deny it. Claire unfolded another paper. A missing persons list dating back 80 years. Every 20 years, someone vanished in that forest. 1986 was the last, she said. And now it's 2025, Margaret added. A perfect 39-year gap. Too long. Something was overdue. Evan felt his skin crawl. So the forest wants someone new. Margaret's eyes met his. That creature called your name, didn't it? Evan couldn't answer. He did. Sheriff Briggs found them at the archive building. He didn't knock. He barged in. You two need to stop digging, he growled. You're putting yourselves in danger. Claire crossed her arms. Sheriff, what are you hiding? Briggs looked at the old maps, the missing persons list. His shoulders slumped. He sat down heavily. My brother, he said quietly. He was one of the hikers in '86. Evan and Claire froze. Briggs continued. They didn't just disappear. They went searching for something. He pulled out a faded photograph from his pocket. 3 men smiling in front of the forest sign. Briggs pointed at the center man, Jack Hanlon. He believed there was something ancient in those woods, Briggs said, a presence that punished the greedy and protected the land. He called it the Lost One. Claire whispered, So the creature calling Evan is that thing? Briggs nodded grimly. When my brother vanished, we searched for weeks, and then Jack came back. Evan stiffened. Jack came back? Briggs's voice cracked. Yes, but he wasn't the same. He talked in riddles, heard voices, said the forest chose him. One night, he disappeared again, left nothing but his boots behind. No one spoke. And then Briggs looked directly at Evan. The Lost One takes people who carry guilt, he said. And you've got plenty. Evan's chest tightened. He knew exactly what the sheriff meant. The call he failed, the patient he couldn't save, the guilt that never left him. The forest smelled it on him. Near sunset, Claire and Evan drove to the trailhead, with Briggs reluctantly following. Claire pointed her flashlight at the ground. Those same long, unnatural footprints from Evan's yard stretched across the leaves, straight into the woods. Briggs muttered, This is a mistake. But Evan kept going. Every few yards, whispers floated between the trees. You left me. Come back. Evan, Help! Some voices were children. Some sounded like women crying. Some were only breaths. Claire gripped Evan's arm. These are the voices of the missing. No, Evan whispered. These are the voices the forest wants us to hear. At a fork in the trail, the footprints suddenly doubled. 2 sets, then 3, then 5, dozens, and they were all leading to the same place. The still place. The deeper they went into Black Ridge Forest, the stranger the world became. The trees grew taller, thicker, almost unnaturally straight. The air felt different, heavier, colder, as if the forest had its own breath. Evan's flashlight flickered. Claire whispered, "Do you hear that?" Briggs held up a hand. All 3 of them froze. In the distance, children laughing. Not cheerful, not playful. The kind of laughter that didn't belong in a dark forest. The kind that mimicked joy, but wasn't human. Evan swallowed hard. This isn't right. They continued until the trees suddenly opened into a circular clearing. The still place. And the moment they stepped inside, the wind died. The forest went silent. No insects, no rustling leaves, no sound at all. It was like the world paused. A massive stone stood in the center, half buried, ancient, and cracked. Strange markings covered it, spirals and lines that didn't look like any alphabet. Claire knelt down. "These aren't carvings." Briggs frowned. "Then what are they?" She touched one gently. "It looks like burn marks." They looked at one another. Suddenly, Evan gasped. Behind the stone, 3 silhouettes stood at the tree line, frozen, watching them. The figures stepped forward. Evan felt his blood turn to ice. They were the missing hikers from 1986, but not alive, not dead. Something in between. Their eyes were hollow. Their bodies stiff, like puppets on invisible strings. And then one of them spoke, in a voice that wasn't his. "You came back, Evan." Evan staggered backward. "What do you want from me?" All 3 spoke at once. "You owe us." The ground began to tremble. The stone cracked, and from the largest crack, a hand emerged. Not human, not even close. Long fingers, black veins, skin like bark. Claire screamed, "Run!" But the forest didn't let them. Roots burst from the ground, wrapping around their ankles. Branches bent inward, forming a cage of wood. Evan tried to pull free, but the harder he fought, the tighter the roots squeezed. And then the ground beneath the stone split open completely. Something rose from below, tall, thin, wrapped in a rotted cloak of vines. Its face was covered in the forest soil. Only 2 empty black holes where eyes should be. The lost one. A voice echoed inside their heads. Not spoken aloud, but felt. "One generation must stay." Evan grabbed his head, pain shooting through his skull. "Why me?" The entity floated closer. Your guilt feeds me. Images flashed in Evan's mind. The young boy he couldn't save in the ambulance. The mother screaming his name. His hands shaking helplessly. Evan fell to his knees. No. Stop. But the forest wasn't listening. Claire shouted, Evan, look at me! That thing feeds on your mind! Fight it! Briggs pulled out his revolver and fired twice. Bang! Bang! The bullets hit the lost one and dissolved into smoke. The entity didn't even flinch. Instead, its head slowly turned toward the sheriff, and in Briggs's own voice, it whispered, You left your brother to die. Briggs dropped the gun, trembling violently. No, I tried to find him. The lost one lifted its hand. The sheriff's body jerked into the air like a puppet. You failed. Evan shouted, Stop! The creature released the sheriff. He fell to the ground unconscious. The lost one turned back to Evan. You are next. The vines tightened around Evan's chest. He couldn't breathe. He felt his consciousness slipping. Claire screamed his name. His vision blurred. The forest swallowed him. Evan woke with a jolt. He was lying on cold stone, darkness all around him. He tried to move. His wrists and ankles were bound by twisting roots. Footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate. A shadow approached him. It was Jack Hanlon, or what was left of him. His body was broken, twisted, limbs bending in impossible directions, like a marionette controlled by someone who didn't understand human anatomy. But his face still held sadness. Evan, Jack whispered. Help me. Evan's breath trembled. Jack, what happened to you? Jack pointed upward, where faint moonlight filtered through cracks above. The forest takes the guilt and makes it flesh. He moved closer. You must escape before it makes you one of us. Evan's eyes widened. How do I break free? Jack leaned inches from his face. You don't, he said softly. But she might. Evan frowned. She? Pointed toward the ceiling again, and above them, through the cracks. Evan heard a frantic voice shouting his name, Claire. She was still searching for him, still fighting. Jack whispered, She is your anchor. Hold on to her voice. It is the only thing the forest cannot corrupt. Then Jack stepped back, and as he did, the lost one descended from the shadows like a spider coming down its web. No more delays, Evan screamed as the roots tightened around him. Claire's voice grew louder from above. Evan, hold on! The lost one hissed. The world exploded into darkness. Claire forced her way deeper into the woods, lungs burning, clothes torn, calling Evan's name again and again. No answer, just the forest breathing around her. She reached the still place again, but this time the clearing looked different. The stone was glowing faintly, pulsating like a heartbeat. The ground beneath it was cracked wide open. Evan, she whispered. Then she heard it, a faint echo from below. Not Evan, but the same child's voice from before. Help me. Claire clenched her jaw. You're not real. You're not fooling me. Her flashlight caught something carved into the stone's base, a spiral symbol, exactly like the burn marks on the 1950s maps. But below it, someone had scratched words into the rock. The living can enter, the lost cannot leave. Claire ran her fingers over the carving. Her heartbeat quickened. The stone wasn't a marker. It was a door, and it was already open. With a deep breath, she slid into the crack and climbed down. The descent was steep and suffocating. Roots brushed her hair. Dirt crumbled onto her shoulders. The deeper she went, the colder the air became. Every sound echoed, her breathing, her footsteps. And then she heard something else. Whispers. Evan's voice. Claire, Claire, don't come. The voice sounded terrified. That's when she realized Evan wasn't calling her. The forest was mimicking him. Her flashlight flickered. Something moved behind her. She spun around, pointing the beam at a narrow tunnel. A face stared back at her. Not human. One hollow eye. One rotted cheek. Skin stretched tight like wet paper. It whispered, "Leave while you still can." Claire's breath hitched. The creature stepped forward into the light, and she recognized it. Sheriff Briggs's brother, one of the missing hikers, still alive, still conscious, but trapped between life and something else. He shook violently, as if fighting invisible chains. "The Lost One is listening," he whispered. "If you don't run, he will take you too." Claire stared, horrified. "Please, where's Evan?" The creature pointed trembling fingers down the tunnel. "He's being remade." Evan wasn't sure if he was dreaming or awake. His mind moved through memories. The boy he couldn't save. The ambulance lights flashing. The moment he froze in panic. But layered over those images was something else. Dark roots wrapping around his chest. Cold tendrils piercing into his skin. Voices telling him, "You could have saved them. You should have saved them. Now you will save us." He tried to scream, but roots covered his mouth. The Lost One hovered above him, featureless face dripping soil. "You carry the guilt of many," it whispered. "You will feed the forest for years." Evan shook his head violently. "No, please, no!" The roots tightened, lifting him off the stone slab. His vision blurred in and out. He saw Jack standing nearby, body trembling. Jack whispered, "Fight it, Evan. Don't let it in." But Jack himself was barely standing, barely human. The Lost One turned toward him. "You failed once before, Jack." Jack dropped to his knees as if crushed by the words. The creature returned its attention to Evan. "Tonight, a new guardian will be chosen. Roots spread across Evan's arms, wrapping him like a cocoon. He couldn't breathe. His heart pounded faster. Then slower. Then painfully slow. The lost one whispered, "Become mine." Claire crawled deeper through the tunnel until she reached an opening so large it felt like stepping into the hollow stomach of a giant creature. The underground chamber was circular, lit by glowing veins running through the roots. The air hummed with energy. Dark, ancient, angry, she saw Evan suspended mid-air by the roots. She saw Jack kneeling beneath him. She saw the lost one descending. Claire's stomach twisted. No, Evan. The chamber reacted instantly to her presence. The roots around Evan shuddered. The lost one froze, turning slowly toward her. Its voice echoed through her skull. The girl with the stubborn spirit. Claire stepped forward, shaking but determined. "Let him go." The creature tilted its head. "You defy the forest?" "I defy you," Claire said, "because you're scared." The air vibrated. The creature inched closer. Scared of what? Claire took a breath she didn't feel she had. Of the truth. Jack suddenly looked up, eyes widening. Claire continued. "Evan isn't chosen. He was lured. Tricked. Just like the others." The lost one's silhouette flickered. "The forest takes only the guilty." "Wrong," Claire said firmly. "You take the vulnerable, the grieving, the broken. Not because they owe you, but because they're easiest to control." Silence fell. Even the forest seemed to stop breathing. The lost one whispered, voice thin as frost, "You know nothing." "Then explain," Claire said. "Why do you need one person every generation? Why do you mimic familiar voices? Why do you twist their memories until they break?" The roots trembled. Jack spoke weakly. "He's not feeding on our guilt. ... Claire turned toward the creature. "You think Evan is weak, but you're wrong. He's stronger than all of us." The lost one let out a sound like cracking stone. "You challenge the forest." Claire lifted her flashlight like a weapon. "No, I challenge you." The beam hit the creature's face. The lost one screamed, not in pain, but in rage. The entire chamber shook. Roots snapped. Dust fell. The air exploded with a gust of icy wind, and the creature lunged. Something slammed into Claire, knocking her sideways. A root whipped across her shoulder, cutting it open. Evan dangled helplessly above them, half-conscious, eyes rolling. The lost one towered over Claire. "You cannot save him." Claire crawled backward. "Yes, I can." She grabbed a jagged stone from the ground and slashed at the nearest root. The glowing vein inside it burst like a ruptured artery. The chamber screamed. Evan fell several feet before another root caught him. Jack stood up shakily. His voice trembled. "The veins, they control the bindings. If you break enough, you weaken him." Claire didn't hesitate. She ran to the nearest glowing root and stomped on it with all her strength. Crack! Another burst of light. The lost one roared. The chamber heaved like a living organism in pain. Evan gasped, beginning to breathe normally again. Claire broke another glowing vein. Crack! The lost one shrank back, body flickering like a dying shadow. Jack shouted, "One more! Break one more!" Claire swung her stone at the closest vein, but a root caught her mid-swing, wrapping around her neck. She choked, feet kicking. Evan saw it. His eyes snapped wide open, and for the first time, he screamed, "No! Let her go!" The forest reacted. Not the creature, the forest. Every root in the chamber quivered, unsure. The lost one hissed, "She is nothing to you." Evan shouted through tears, "She is everything!" For a moment, the forest hesitated. Claire gasped as the root loosened. Evan's breath steadied. Jack whispered, "Now, Claire, do it!" Claire smashed the final glowing vein. Crack! A blinding flash. The chamber erupted. Roots exploded in every direction. The lost one shrieked, its body unraveling into black vines. Jack was thrown backward. Evan fell. Claire caught him before he hit the ground. For a moment, there was silence. Then the entire forest seemed to inhale sharply, as if deciding what to do next. The lost one's dissolving body reformed into a swirling mass of roots, shadows, and soil, barely holding shape. It spoke in a voice that belonged to thousands. One must stay. One must feed the forest. Claire stepped between Evan and the creature. "No," she said. "No more sacrifices." The creature swayed. "The forest demands." Evan stood, shaky but alive. "No," he said. "You demand it. You are not the forest. You're a parasite." The creature froze. Jack gasped. "He's right. He's right." The entity was never the forest's will. It was a corruption. Evan stepped forward. "All these years, you've been weaker than you pretended." The creature shrank back. "You needed us to believe in the guilt. But guilt is just a memory. You don't control us." Claire grabbed Evan's hand. "Let's end it." Together, they stepped forward. The creature screamed as their combined presence pushed against it. The chamber cracked. Light burst from the broken veins. The air vibrated like a thunderstorm trapped underground. The lost one collapsed inward, folding like a dying shadow until it shrank into a tight, writhing mass, and then dissolved into dust. The roots loosened. The chamber brightened. Jack fell to the ground, crying weakly. Briggs's brother collapsed beside him, finally free. The forest exhaled, peacefully, for the first time in decades. Evan and Claire helped the two long-lost hikers climb out of the chamber. When they reached the surface, dawn was breaking. The forest looked normal, peaceful, almost gentle. Birds chirped overhead for the first time in the entire story. Jack looked around, eyes softening. "I think the forest is finally free." Claire helped him sit against a tree. Briggs came stumbling down the trail, bruised but alive. When he saw his brother, he fell to his knees and cried. Evan and Claire stood side by side, watching the sunrise. Evan whispered, "Do you think it's over?" Claire smiled faintly. "I think we broke the cycle." They started walking back toward town, but before the woods faded behind them, a single whisper floated behind them. Not threatening, not hungry, just tired. "Thank you." Evan and Claire stopped walking. They didn't turn around. Some mysteries didn't need answers. Some entities weren't evil. They were trapped. And some forests, after decades of darkness, finally learned how to breathe again.